On the screen, you have 6 players that I am completely avoiding in 2023. These have been 6 of my, don't go near them players 2023, 2 of which are already down and out. Let's talk about these 4 gentlemen. And lastly, probably the most controversial player on the entire list here. The player I think is going to lose a lot of people their leagues in 2023.
Keenan Allen.
Smitty, he's so good. The Fantasy Football Show. It begins right now.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.
These videos always piss somebody off. Understandably so, because a lot of you own these guys. And before we talk about Jeudy, Mixon, Deontay, and Keenan Allen, let's first address the elephants in the room right here. And let's talk first about Cooper Kupp. Now, Cooper Kupp is already busted. I put an X over his face because he feels like he ruined your fantasy football season already. There's still some sort of hope he could be back earlier than people think. Maybe he can get on the field in week 3 or 4, week number 2. Some even, as of this recording right now, on September 5th, Tuesday, some people are holding out hope that he plays week 1. We know he's not going to probably play week 1, let alone week 2, let alone week 3. And if he did somehow, some way, run onto the field in week 2 or 3, he's getting injured again. He's 30 years old. He has a long injury history, torn ACL, the injured ankle last season, the tightrope surgery, all at the age of 30, on the wrong side of 30. Harder to heal, more soft tissue injuries, an aging and injury-prone quarterback that's not getting good rapport established with his wide receivers, and a team in the Rams that's probably going to crumble. We don't know what Cooper Kupp looks like without Matthew Stafford for the long term, so the red flags are all over the place on this one, and they were, which is why I've been beating a dead horse and this mallet on the topic of not going near Cooper Kupp at his number 5 overall ADP. He's been holding most all of the offseason. Then when he suffered the initial hamstring injury, people kept saying, Smitty, he's gonna be okay. Smitty, I've drafted him.
He'll be fine.
Smitty, he's Cooper Kupp. He's the best receiver in the league. He's not, though. He has been in a very short window of time. He was the best receiver in the league last year, points per game. He didn't play a whole season. He didn't play the whole year. He didn't play the whole year. Stop extrapolating 1 year when really he's only had 1 electric season. His Triple Crown season was arguably the best fantasy football wide receiver season we've ever seen. You can't take it away from him. Give him his flowers. I love Cooper Kupp, and he's a good dude. There's no hate or shade being thrown on him. But 1 elite season in his entire career, and he's 30 years old right now. It's not like he's got this boatload of time to say, well, Smitty, let him prove himself. He's just getting going. He's not. He's at the very end of his career. 30 years old. You're lucky if you play elite football at the tune of what these top wide receivers are getting fed. You could be an older guy and string it along at age 32, 33. But when you get the amount of work and you're overutilized, you're all over the field, you're taking hits, you're running downfield every play, and you're 30, 31, you're at your final destination. If for any reason you're contemplating drafting him, trading for him, not trading him away when somebody offers you a Deebo Samuel straight up, or a Calvin Ridley, or even somebody like Devontae Smith or whatever, if you're contemplating hanging on to Cooper Kupp, you're making a grave mistake. He is not a player you go near. Now, do you draft him if, let's say, you're drafting tomorrow night in the 11th hour? Do you draft him in round 5 or 6? I'm not against that, and I'm not against trading for him. If, let's say, you take a player like Cooper Kupp, let's say the owner that owns Cooper Kupp also has a, let's call it Kenneth Walker, and you have a Saquon Barkley. Is it crazy to go give this owner Saquon Barkley, take Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet and Cooper Kupp off their hands, and have a running back that I think can actually hang with Saquon Barkley? That's not crazy. Do you trade maybe an overrated Keenan Allen for Cooper Kupp and George Pickens, or Cooper Kupp and Isaiah Pacheco? I don't mind that at all. Do I draft him to be my number 1 overall player, my number 2 overall player, my number 3 overall player? No. Do I trade for him to be my number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, or even my number 5 overall player? No. Kenneth Walker's in round 5 sometimes. He's more valuable than Cooper Kupp. ETN in round 4, more valuable than Cooper Kupp. Deebo Samuel in round 4, more valuable than Cooper Kupp. And everything I'm saying about Cooper Kupp, I'm going to say the same thing about JT, but JT at least has a better shot, in my opinion, being a younger player that might be fabricating some of the extent of his injuries to just not play. He's not motivated. He doesn't want to be in Indy anymore. So there's more of a chance that he comes out of week number 4, gets traded or doesn't get traded, but hopefully gets traded and somehow, some way goes into an Eagles situation and heads over to the Eagles, who have the best offensive line in football. And that puts a fork in a DeAndre Swift value, but we'll address that if it comes. But if he goes to Philly and he plays behind the best offensive line in football, he could win you a league. But the same front end conversation needs to be had that we aren't going after him. We aren't drafting him as a top 1, 2, 3, or even 4 overall player. Do you take him around 5 or 6? I'm okay with that if everything falls right, if all your ducks are in a row. There's a good amount of players on the board for your 6th round and 7th round picks, and you're like, I'm kind of kicking the can down the road, but it won't really affect me because I love Dotson here instead of going a 5th round wide receiver. I took him in a keeper league in round 6, unlimited keeper league. Like, those kind of things matter. And in the same context of trading for him, if you trade for him and you acquire, let's say, a Deebo Samuel and JT for, let's call it, Jalen Waddle in round 2. Jalen Waddle goes 14, 15, 18 overall. Deebo goes in the 4th round, and now JT goes in round 6. If you're smart, do I take a Deebo and JT for Jalen Waddle? Yes, I do. Do I take a Ridley and JT for maybe a wide receiver up in the 1st round territory? Yes, I do. That is smart trading. That is laying off, finding a loophole somewhere where a top potential running back, and JT still could be, might be given to you for free to do the perception of a trade down to get a guy you quietly like as much as the player you're giving up. So if we're using the example of AJ Brown, who I love AJ Brown, but I actually like Calvin Ridley as much quietly. I'm not drafting Ridley up where I'm drafting AJ Brown. The key here is I'm trading AJ Brown to get Ridley or Deebo round 4 and get JT thrown into the deal. Bust and bust if you got these guys at their cost, their previous cost, and I don't want you to run into the same kind of situation with Mixon, Deontay, Keenan Allen, and Jeudy. Let's start off with Jeudy because he actually is injured right now, and people were taking him in a round 4 territory, which has me scratching my head. Jerry Jeudy in round 4 is one of the most uncomfortable ADPs I've been looking at all offseason long. It's making me scream. It feels very much like Deontay Johnson's 3rd round and Michael Pittman's 3rd round ADP last year, which I had a huge problem with. And I screamed all the time about it, and they both completely busted on people. Sometimes Deontay would go at the very end of August at the bottom of round 2. And the same thing for Michael Pittman Jr. It was 2-3 turn. It was ridiculous, and it ruined fantasy football leagues. Jeudy is one of the most inconsistent wide receivers in the National Football League. His team is in shambles, potentially going to crawl out from whatever hole they've dug themselves in because Sean Payton would be the coach to do it. But until they crawl out, they're in shambles. I don't trust the quarterback in Russell Wilson. He talks to imaginary people and gives imaginary pep talks and gives imaginary high fives. And you can laugh at me all you want, but I don't trust anything I see when I look at Russell Wilson right now. I just don't. Until they bounce back, I'm giving no benefit of the doubt to Russell Wilson or to also his receiving core. I do have some trust in Javonte, obviously, because this team will run a ton, and Sean Payton is always successful running the football and having a good running back, a top 10 running back, and Javonte is a tackle-breaking monster, and he's having a miracle recovery, and people are so petrified of general ACL tears without looking into the specific situations of each individual tear, and they just say things. There'll be a couple casual comments in the comments of this video too, where people say, avoid ACL tears their first year. They won't even watch the video. You're just going to see it. Avoid ACL tears the first season. It's all about readiness, how old you are, situation, and how good you look early on in the process, not like Saquon Barkley and JK, not ready at all, either one of them, to enter the NFL their first year back from an ACL tear and take the league by storm. Compensation in injuries were awaiting both of them like clockwork because they were not prepared. Compensation injuries that led to Cooper Kupp's hamstring injury because he wasn't ready to be out there in scrimmages going full go when he wasn't even ready. His leg, his ankle was not even ready. And it was clear as day. He's out there doing scrimmages at 30 years old with soft tissue risk. It was a disaster waiting to happen. I can't believe people took him at number 5 overall. And Jeudy, not to mention being inconsistent, not to mention having a team I don't believe in offensively from the passing perspective at least. Again, I feel differently about the run. And I'm not saying they'll be garbage moving the football down the field. I think they move the chains, but I don't think they consistently turn out a elite wide receiver to the tune of a 4th round pick. This is crazy. 4th round value. Now he got injured and his ADP has taken a little bit of a hit, but he's still going in the 4 to 5 territory. No one's taking their foot off the gas, and this is a disaster waiting to happen. And if you didn't listen to me, I've been beating a dead horse on this for weeks and weeks and weeks and months, really. If you haven't listened to me over the last couple of months, you can still get out because his ADP is pretty good right now. I think you could trade him straight up for a Deebo Samuel. I think you could trade him straight up for a Christian Watson, both of which I do. You could trade him straight up for a Dameon Pierce, straight up for a Kenneth Walker. You could get a Dotson and a Pacheco combo. He's often injured, and he was one of the worst wide receivers in the National Football League against zone coverage. And there's nothing about his 4th round ADP that I like at all. Trade him away if you drafted him, and I'm not even advising you to trade for him under really any circumstance that I can envision. Jerry Jeudy.
You've just been Smitty disapproved.
Joe Mixon has dropped off. I can see it. It's an eye test for me. Granted, the numbers have dipped. In 2022, he reportedly played 14 games. I see 15 on a couple other career stats. I don't know if he actually got injured in one of those games and it was counted on some career stats and not on others, but let's just go with 14 here. 210 carries, 814 yards, 3.9 yards per carry. 7 touchdowns was his saving grace, and he got a lot of work in 1 week, if you remember back in 2022. The decline is real. I was using a lot of tangible reasons why Jeudy was an avoid. In Mixon's case, there's data right there. I just showed you the data. There's also the fact that the team asked him to take a pay cut. I don't know very many people that get asked to take a pay cut when they're over delivering and they're valuable beyond value. This guy was asked by his team to take a pay cut or will release you. They clearly see a decline. Now, he'll protect Joe Burrow right out of the gate in 2023 as they bring along Chase Brown. Don't think for a second that because they asked him to stay, they aren't trying to get Chase Brown ready to pass protect and get inserted into the offense to be a more productive running back. I quietly like Chase Brown a lot in fantasy football 2023. I think we've liked him a lot in the past, and because he kind of was the flavor of the day and we didn't hear much buzz about him, and the inflated value of, oh, Mixon could get released and didn't, kind of soured that whole idea, and people kind of went away from Chase Brown. I still like Chase Brown a lot, and I think people should consume him at the end of drafts just because this offense is so amazing, but also because I think he's a good prospect. But Joe Mixon, aside from all the tangible things that I've already thrown at you, the numbers that we just looked at, the dip in production, the fact that the team asked him to take a pay cut or said, go, we'll send you packing, and he took the pay cut. Those tangible reasons, the most important one, different from these because this was about red flags surrounding Cooper Kupp. He still was amazing, still is amazing when he's on the field, still could be, and there's risk involved in that you want to mitigate, which is why he's an avoid. And same thing here. It's not like things have dropped off. Okay, so these are different. This is an eye test. Visually, he has dropped off. If you didn't see it, maybe you're blinded by nostalgia or the fact that you might own him in some dynasty leagues, or maybe you just didn't watch him play, which is fine. You can't watch every game. That's what I'm here for. And I'm telling you, I see drop off. He's not going to be what people think he is. He's not worth the 4th round pick. And if you somehow didn't listen to me and you drafted him in the 4th round, there's still time to trade him because his 4th round ADP means that people will take him. You could trade him right now for a Kenneth Walker straight up and get Charbonnet. You can trade him probably in many cases for ETN or for Breece Hall. You can give up Mixon and another player and probably reach for a Ridley if you wanted to. You could probably get Deebo straight up. Very tradable. Stay away from him. And I don't see a scenario like with Jeudy where I even want to advise you to get in. Deontay Johnson caught 0 touchdowns in 2022. 0. And he just kind of feels like that wide receiver that's roaming around the field making mistakes, like a lot of mistakes that I think will prevent him from ever truly becoming a number 1 wide receiver on the team. And I remember when Pickens was drafted, I said in a video that Pickens on Instagram that Pickens was the wide receiver 1 of the future, and the hate in the comments was unreal. Pickens is the number 1 wide receiver. He's the alpha dog. He's the polished wide receiver. He's going to dominate at all levels and be the alpha, the contested catch, playmaking, highlight reel machine. And clearly, by the looks of Deontay's touchdown capability, he will be George Pickens, the most capable on the team of being a 10 TD guy. Pickens is the one. Pickens is a 6th-round pick, roughly, so maybe 7. Why in the hell are we taking Deontay Johnson anywhere near the 7th-round territory when Pickens is going in round 6 and he's the number 1? That's my question for you. Now, if you're here to say Smitty, he's a target hog, he does consume a lot of targets, but he does drop a lot of balls. And like I said, he makes errors all over the place. He doesn't have the feel. You can chalk this up to a gut instinct. We've got numbers and tangible things and the eye test here. We've got a lot of data and a lot of red flags and tangible items over here. And this one might be more of, even though we have some data, some numbers, some tangible mathematical things we could throw at the table, freaking science, baby. 0 touchdowns, drop footballs, mistakes all over. The majority of my take, I will take ownership of this right now. The majority of my take is gut instinct, and you can't take that away from me. Not to mention logic of the number 1 wide receiver being Pickens. He's going in round 6. What business does this man have of being anywhere near Pickens ADP wise? If you've got him, if you drafted him, trade him high. And lastly, probably the most controversial player on the entire list here. The player I think is going to lose a lot of people their leagues in 2023.
Keenan Allen.
Smitty, he's so good. I want to believe in him so bad. I'm vicariously living through this man who's getting older, and if he can do it, we all can do it, Smitty. Let's stand by Keenan Allen, and let's say 31-year-olds can be number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers in the National Football League. No, 31 years old, 31 years of age. Smitty, you just hate a lot of the older guys. Look, it's data. This is not gut instinct as much as it is pure, raw predictability. Not only is he 31 years old, very improbable for him to drop an electric elite season on the laps of people investing 4th round value, sometimes round 3. He goes in round 3. A lot of the time, lately, I've been looking at the tail end of the 3rd round in a bunch of drafts. He's sitting at the 3-4 turn. And you're going to come in and say, Herbert's going to do it, Smitty. Red flags galore. Changing offense. Kellen Moore is going to go downfield where this guy's not necessarily going to be in that role. Keenan Allen might get a lot of targets, a lot of short targets. I get it. But a lot of hits are going to get taken. A lot of wear and tear on his body. He's 31 years old. And not only that, he's often injured player, catching the football in congested areas as they try and go vertical. 31 years of age, new system. Not to mention his yards per route run have declined over the last 4 or 5 years in a row. The numbers tell you he's slowing down. The injury risk goes up because he's 31 years old and the offense will change around him, and he's not going to be the deep threat. He will not be the deep threat. The fact that he goes in round 3, it puts a smile on my face because anybody taking him at the tail end of round 3 is bumping a player down to me in the 4th round, like a Deebo Samuel, like a Kenny Walker, like a Justin Fields. I'm ear to ear. Grin, ear to ear. I couldn't be more happy that people think and believe and will continue to beat the drum that this guy's going to win you a league or be worth anything close to a late 3rd or top of 4 type of draft pick. Smitty, he'll be good. I think you're wrong about Keenan Allen. How many leagues do you own him in, Bob? Smitty, Justin Herbert's going to bounce back. Maybe he will. I'm not saying he necessarily is going to fail. I'm just saying moving parts, red flags everywhere. Changing offense. Herbert didn't have the season he should have had last year. Smitty, he was hurt. And again, this isn't a negative on Herbert, but Fields was hurt. Josh Allen was hurt. Joe Burrow was hurt. Patrick Mahomes was hurt. Every top quarterback was injured last year. Let's stop using injury to excuse why Herbert did bad. I'm not saying Herbert won't bounce back. I very much like Herbert. I've been a big fan of Herbert's. I thought he was going to have a killer season last year. I admit that. And I'm not mad at him for it. I'm not taking it out on him. I'm merely telling you, changing offense, Eckler's getting older, this guy's getting older, a lot of moving parts for Keenan Allen to do well. Stay away from him. If you didn't listen, and I've been beating this drum all off season long, if you didn't listen, you still have time because his ADP's through the roof. You can do a lot of the same things I was talking about with Jeudy and Mixon, same trades, same players. Trade them away. Go get Debo. Go get Kenneth Walker. Go get Breece Hall. Go get Najee Harris. Go get ETN. Go get Ramondre Stevenson. Go get Justin Fields and a Pacheco in a combo trade because Fields or Burrow might have later ADP than him in almost every format I can get my hands on. Meaning that if somebody, let's say, drafted 2 quarterbacks, they got Anthony Richardson, they're feeling a little light at wide receiver, you can say, hey, give me Pacheco, garbage player, even though we love him, and I'll give you Keenan Allen, 3rd, 4th round player, bro. You give me your quarterback. You roll with your backup, Anthony Richardson, looks good. Feed the man, plant the seed, make the trade, avoid these guys, get out of here.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.